when life feels like it's just a constant wedgie, that is not living.
Yeah.
You know, we're here for more than that. But what it makes me think of, you mentioned taking a blind step. There's a quote that I include in my book, since we're trading quotes. It's E.L. Doctorow, and it's the idea that, you don't, you can drive. You only have to be able to see as far as your headlights will go. You can't see the whole journey,
Yeah.
but you can make the whole journey that way, just seeing what's right in front of you. And that to me takes me back to the importance of choices. To
Yes.
me, everything we do is all about choices. We talk about fear and how fear really holds us back. But the opposite of fear isn't just courage. The opposite of fear is choice.
Mhm.
But the magic part of choices is learning to be able to make them not from this place of our ego, our brain, our acquired personality, our conditioning,
Yeah.
right? Uh, we don't want to make ego guided choices. We want to drop down into something deeper and make soul guided choices. But I think the trouble is so few of us, we're all pretty acquainted with our ego.
Yeah.
I wish more of us were more deeply acquainted with our soul.
So in your book and in your work, you take people through the process of doing that because, like you said, most of us have no idea how to even look inward. And a lot of times people are like, there's also this guilt around like first world problems. My life is pretty good. Isn't this very self-involved navel gazing to expect more? Like, isn't I should be happy this is good enough.
Yeah.
But you also talk about one of my favorite phrases, which is not this, like
Mm.
taking the time to get brutally honest about what we're unhappy with, regardless of whether we think that is valid or whether we should be happy with it. So, can you take us through some of those steps that you work with people on?
Yeah. Yeah. Not this. We obviously have to give credit where credit is due. And here we just bow to the great Elizabeth Gilbert, the patron saint of brave women everywhere. Um, if anybody who's listening to this podcast has not read Liz Gilbert's 2016 essay called Not This, um, press pause now.
I will link to it in the show notes. So we have all the good links so people can find them and won't have to stop driving to remember.
Okay. Okay. Very good. She talks about, if you won't take the time to listen to that deep life force within you that's saying not this, and the one that won't be silenced, you could end up stuck in this place of not this for a very long time.
Yeah.
And for me, there's another phrase that I come back to a lot around the idea of not this. And you hit the nail on the head, Casey, when you were talking about what we think we should be happy with,
Mhm.
right? There is the psychology of should, but there is the psychology of want. And when those two things um, are at odds with one another, we get like this real sense of indigestion, right? I blame this on, it's like the curse of what I call other people's opinions, and
Yeah.
other people capitalized, right?
Yeah.
When you reach that place where you're just like absolutely up to here, right? It's like right at your throat. You're up to here with other people's opinions. Like you realize I I just can't swallow one more of these or I'm going to lose my freaking
Yeah.
mind. That's when I think we have two choices. Like we can keep swallowing other people's opinions, or we can spit that shit out
Yeah.
and decide to honor the wisdom and the intuition of our own soul. And I think the first place we have to start is looking at our own values. And, everybody think, oh God, values, here we go again. But I mean, be honest, when was the last time you may have sat down and thought about the evolution of your values? Because here's where it starts. If you go back to your family of origin, we are born into that set of values, right?
Yeah.
Our parents, which of course is informed by their whole lifetime, right? So
Their
they've got,
parents and
so they've got a set of values that we are born into. And okay, so then we go off to school, and maybe our school has some values. Maybe it's a religious school or, a public school, but usually any sort of institution is going to be built around some set of values that is worked into our psyche over time. Then let's say you move into the work world. Again, that's an institution that's going to be built around some set of values, some culture, right? Which may or may not necessarily be yours, but you're probably going to live it. Then maybe let's say you pair off with somebody, you partner off with somebody. Now you've got another individual
yeah.
who has a set of values that go all the way back to their family of origin, right? And all this time, you or I have just been adopting everybody else's values. And it wasn't until I stopped and realized, first of all, your values may not be mine. I may have somehow adopted different ones or outgrown those or replaced some. But until I really sat down and kind of asked myself, what do I stand for?
Yeah.
What is my North Star? What do I really believe in? And when I allowed myself the grace to understand that my values, that it was okay that they were going to evolve over time,
Yeah.
just as I had. And so that's when I understood, like, oh, it's this sense of constant gardening, right? We don't just plant a garden once and think, okay, there's my garden for forever, right? We've got to water, we've got to fertilize, we've got to deadhead, we've got to pull the weeds. When seasons change, maybe we plant something else, or maybe we have annuals, maybe we have perennials. The point is, it's never just one and done.
One and done. Yeah.
We have to get into that habit of asking more regularly, tending to more regularly. So once we understand how our values have evolved over time, then the next bit of work for me is to evaluate that, like plot that against the way we live out our values. So if you think of values as your North Star, priorities then are how we bring our values to life. And priorities, just by their very definition, it's what takes precedence over something else. And so I can talk about values, but if I'm not bringing them to life with the way I spend my energy, my time, my attention, my money, then that's empty talk, right? So for example, I can say that I value my sobriety, but unless I'm out there prioritizing self-reflection, if I'm a 12 stepper, working the steps, getting to meetings, working on my resentments, working on all of the other aspects of emotional sobriety. If I'm not prioritizing those activities, then I'm just talking sobriety. I'm not actually living sobriety. So I find when I take people through the exercise of values and priorities, there's often a really big gap between the way people realize that they are prioritizing their time, their money, their attention, versus how they would prioritize it if they were actually living in accordance with their values.